Does your permanent residency visa really expires? Well, let's find out today. This is Nish from Professional Visa and Education Services, your immigration lawyer. Now, generally, when you get your permanent residency, which is valid for 5 years, it never expires. You can live here as long as you like. If you're not traveling, you can stay in Australia as long as you like. But the main thing is, if you are not leaving the country, your permanent residency visa, you don't have to go and spend the money to renew it again. But the main important problem is, usually when we renew your permanent residency visa, the permanent residency visas are usually renewed for traveling purposes. Now, if you're traveling, of course, you have to show the border force that you have some sort of visa to re-enter the country. So even if you have 1 day left on your permanent residency visa, you can still come back to Australia and apply for residence return visa. Now, of course, there are rules when you apply for residence return visa. That general rule of thumb is, without doing a proper calculation, that you have to be in Australia for 2 years in the 5 years period, which shows that the significant time during your permanent residency visa, you've actually spent those significant time in Australia. That's the most important part you have to fulfill. Now, there are situations that people have to leave Australia and they have lived overseas for more than 2 years period. One of those situations, it's usually case by case situation where when we apply for residence return visa, we have to prove that you have a significant ties to Australia, especially that could be financial ties, that could be your family ties, your employment ties. There are a range of commitment that you might have with Australia, which you need to demonstrate if you have lived more than 2 years in Australia, more than significant time overseas than in Australia. There are other evidentiary requirements that you have to fulfill. But generally, if you're just renewing your 5 years permanent residency visa, it will be mainly for your traveling purpose. So to answer your question, whether or not the permanent residency visa expires after 5 years, well, it doesn't. It only expires when you need to travel, which means you need to hold a valid visa. So we suggest, even if you are overseas and if you're holding a permanent residency, if you are worried that you may not be able to come back to Australia because you've spent more than 2 years overseas, well, don't worry, because you can actually come back even if you have 1 day left in your permanent residency. But again, we have to think about the case by case situation in regards to applying for a residence return visa, RRV, and we have to show some significant ties back to Australia, all those components that I just discussed earlier. If you have any problems with your residence return visa, we'll be more than happy to assist you and guide you in terms of renewing your permanent residency again. Thanks for watching. This is Nish again from Professional Visa and Education Services.